I mean, there was children that was abused, but the numbers weren't high enough to warrant a government system to oversee it, because families used to be intact. See, that most of the child abuse is from dysfunctional families.
So basically, you're saying there's been an exponential increase in child abuse in the past 40 years.
Exactly, because of the breakdown of the family.
Uh-huh.
See, divorce and separation is a traumatic event in itself.
Oh, yeah.
For the people involved. Well, see, in a trauma, trauma is stressful.
Right.
And let's take a single mother that her boyfriend just dumped her with a kid.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and this is stressful. She's having to work, take care of the kid.
Mm-hmm.
She's worried about, is she going to get him back? Is he going to come back? Is he not going to come back? What's she going to do? Blah, 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 blah. And she takes this stress out on the kid subconsciously. It's called displacement.
Mm-hmm.
Where you strike out at, like when you get mad and hit a wall.
Yeah.
Called displacement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this damages the kid entirely is unconsciously, on the mother's part. She don't know what she's doing. Or sometimes she even does know what she's doing. She's just mad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think are some of the things that can be done to draw more attention sooner, say at the school level, to these kind of disturbed kids, where maybe they'd be paying more attention to the red flags?
Well, first you got to have. It has to be. People have to care.
Yeah.
First.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. People have to care, and they don't.
Well, what can we do, or what can be done? What can society do to address that? How do you get the public to care if their ox is not being gored, if it's not happening in their neighborhood, if it's not happening to their kids or in their school? How do you get them to become concerned? Well,
the news media, the conscience of the nation, has to reprogram them. The news has to start focusing on substantive issues instead of did Russia meddle in our elections, or what kind of dress is Trump's wife wearing today, or who killed who in Syria or whatever.
Yeah.
The news media has to get on the ball and address it, highlight it over and over and over and over and over until it takes about 30 years in a democracy. It takes about 30 years for a sea change, an attitudinal change in the people to occur.
Well, and it's been alleged also that the level of violence in movies and TV shows and video games too anesthetizes people to it. In other words, people simply become desensitized to the level of violence, and that may be a factor as well.
It is a factor. How could it not be?
Well, this, of course, every time there's a big school shooting, it becomes a political football for gun control. Gun control. All the people that they want to control guns then are jumping on this incident and using it as a political football. And then the people who support the rights of gun, which is constitutional. We have a constitutional right to own guns. Of course, we have the NRA and all of the gun manufacturers and gun sellers and everyone who likes to fish or hunt or protect themselves it's very American to own and possess a gun, and the majority of the country is not going to take kindly to any legislation that attempts to take away their guns. And so I think all of the different maneuvers that are made by the anti-gun people, they're just not going to get very far as long as we have enough people that understand the necessity of a gun for protection.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, I most of the people that are against guns are, consciously at least, their heart's in the right place.
Yeah,
but they're just not informed. They're not aware of the mental health issues in our country, which the head of the World Health Organization a few years ago called the rise of the mental health, the rise in the rate of mental illness. He termed it as astonishing.
Uh-huh.
But
it's probably Mm-hmm.
It just comes back to the apathy. Nobody cares. Who cares? A few people care, but I mean, you got to have a consensus. You got to have in a democracy, you got to have a majority of people that care.
Yeah.
And the majority.
And we know that, right?
Go ahead.
We know that the ruling elite don't care. The billionaire class, they're well protected. Their homes are fortified. If you live in the Highland Park area of Dallas, you've got protection. If you live in Beverly Hills, you've got protection. The police force nationwide in every town and city is the vanguard, is the security force for the elite, for whoever the moneyed people are. It's always been that way, probably always will be. And, it's the working guy in the middle class that has to worry about the violence and the crime. Very, very, very seldom do you get real concern. Oh, they'll pay lip service to it, of course, the politicians that are running for office and the billionaire corporate backers of these politicians. Of course, they'll pay lip service to it. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're mostly the anti-gun crowd. When something like this happens, they want to take away more guns. And because they cruise to their power, as long as police have guns to protect them, they don't want anybody else to have guns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I wish guns didn't exist at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a realist.
Mm-hmm. And it is a constitutional right, and of course Americans won't give up their guns. So I guess it is what it is, at least in our country at this stage in history.
Well, they'd give them up. They'd give them up if the elite decides to really take the guns away. They will. They can, and they would. But there's a lot of money in guns. There's a lot of big arms makers. I find it kind of. Somebody said, "Why don't they sue the NRA?" Well, the NRA don't make guns. Smith & Wesson makes guns. The big corporations make guns. General Electric, Northrop make the arms industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they took the guns. They tightened up on all nations have gun control laws. Every nation. Some more and some less. Like in North Korea, nobody's allowed to have a gun at all. Of course, you can understand.
Yeah. Well, in any of the seriously oppressive regimes worldwide, and that's been the case, for a while. Whether you're talking about Stalinist Russia, whether you're talking about any nation under communism by and large, well, even the European nations, gun ownership is frowned upon, doesn't even exist to any extent. And this is part of the way that the public is left essentially powerless to revolt. Because when the ordinary average citizen does not have access to a firearm, well, the people that do are the people in control and in power, and that would be your police forces and your army, your military.
Right. Well, they're not going to. People are not going to revolt as long as they got bread and circuses.
Hence the entertainment. Yeah, go ahead. And
in North Korea, they don't even have bread and circuses, but they can't revolt because they don't have any guns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And part of that is the West is our fault, because we're trying to starve the people to death over there. We've got embargoes, we don't let them trade or anything, and we're just trying to choke them to death.
I would like to welcome another caller to the show. Good evening. We have another caller from Northeast Texas.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hey, my name is Hetty.
Well, hi, Hetty.
I haven't been listening in, but I meant to call in and start listening in. But things have gotten quite out of control in my area within the past day. And so with multiple crimes being committed nonsensically against others. So what are we discussing today?
Tonight we are discussing the Florida shooting, and I'm sure you've kept up with that and are aware of it, and the tragic loss of life. Well,
sort of, honestly. Just to be honest, yeah. I don't watch the news very much at all, and so for what I do catch, I see it. But I did miss the mention of it today. I didn't know the scope of it.
In that case, I will give you a brief recap, and then you can join in on our discussion.
Okay.
It's a 19-year-old young man, obviously disturbed, AR-15, automatic weapon, shot multiple students, killing 14 of them, wounding 17 others. And not all just kids either. There were a couple of adults. One of them was a coach. It is one of the worst school shootings of all time, right up there with Columbine. There were warning signs. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, this may not be pertinent, but what age range of schooling was this? Was it middle school, elementary?
Oh, it was all high school. It was all his high school that he had attended, and
he had graduated since then, right?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I saw a picture from a yearbook of him from his senior year. Him being 19, I guess last year would have been his graduation. Now, he had a history of disciplinary problems at the school. Of course, at a certain point, he had been expelled, and there was a history of violence toward other students.
Do they know his motive behind it yet? Like, did he leave a note, or is he been captured, or did he?
He left warning signs all over the social media, all over the internet. Yeah. There was a buildup. There was red flags toward this.
He was.
Go ahead.
He was mad.
Yeah.
He was mad?
Yeah, he was angry.
Yeah. Well, I think all individuals who do such an atrocious act against any other persons, absolutely unjustifiably, I think all of them are angry. At some point, whether they're angry they feel alone, or whether they're angry at some specific incident that never got apologized for or was in retribution for. But this was in Florida?
It was in Florida, yes, in Broward County.
Does anyone know the laws regarding obtaining automatic fire weapons? Because I know here in Texas we don't have those for sale in stores, do we? I know we got semi-automatics. But, as a felon, I can't own a gun. So, I don't go shopping anymore. But am I wrong in this assumption? Is there no restrictions or requirements necessary to obtain an automatic rifle?
As I understand it, the laws differ from state to state, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, you can buy an automatic weapon, a fully automatic weapon in Texas, but you have to be a dealer. But you can take an AK-47 and just bump it, hold the trigger back.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are mods you can do, you can purchase, and tricks you can use in order to get a different firing rate, if you will, for whatever weapon you got, and that's, you know, pretty much everywhere. But I know that, you know, the whole thing, I feel like because I already know, anytime somebody does anything against somebody else with a gun, it turns into gun control. Because anytime anybody anywhere gets hurt and there are people upset about it, well, first people that's going to be jumping in for anybody else will be a politician or two that's got their own agenda to push to help with their supporters to guide them to the limelight for the next election at one moment. Huh?
And that's exactly what we were discussing just before you called in, was how this was a political football, and that both sides, both the anti-gun and the pro-gun lobbies, will be up in arms. And of course, this incident
I'm on the phone. Sorry, I'm
again becomes a political football, of course.
All right, just one moment.
All right.
You know what? You need to let your brother sit there. We're not doing this whole taking over spots thing. Y'all can all three sit there. We're not playing that game. I'm on the phone. Sorry.
And I guess in the current society and political system that we live in, that goes with the territory. The fact that something like this will become politicized.
Well, it's immediately jumped on. I almost think that politicians today are waiting for somebody to make a terrible decision and to do something terrible. That's honestly what I think. Huh. Did you say something to my interior?
I would say that's probably
no, I can't
correct.
get him to come on whenever I turn on, open the door. I'm sorry. I don't know what's up with it.
Would you like to weigh in on that?
Sorry, I'm on the radio show.
What are we?
I don't know what's up with them.
On how politicians seize this type of opportunity and at every turn when everything happens, you know, of course, anything that can be useful to them is immediately seized upon. Go ahead.
Anything and everything that happens is a reason to vote for me.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. And you know what? It's really sad that that is the commercialization of it. All right, it may not be dollar signs into some, you know, a product to be sold, but it is a form of currency. You know, the political favor. And what's really terrible is that a lot of people see we have these tragedies, these terrible things that occur. All right, and everyone thinks it's a certain person, it's a certain type of person, it's a certain anything, it's a certain rule in our Constitution that made this possible. But what's really sad is that people forget bad people are going to do bad things, and then a lot can only keep out an honest person. All right, and like gun control. All right, you know what? There should be rules and regulations on people owning weapons. We already have them. You know, granted, they may not be the best. I don't like how states are so different. I think our federal government, if they were to be involved, exercise respect for each state and create a general guideline system, such as there's not really any call for you to need to have an automatic firing weapon here in the United States on our soil unless you are a service member or unless it is at the station that you work that has weapons, I think, personally. All right? You don't hunt for sport with an AR-15. You know, those are guns that are only made for hurting an individual and not being able to catch them. Or super fast cheetahs. And last I checked, we ain't got very many of those. You know, just to be honest. You know, I'm just making sure. Am I still on the call? Okay, all right. Everyone got quiet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I agree. I agree with you, but you only got half the equation.
I know. And the other half,
we need to deal with mental health issues.
Yes.
Is the other half of the equation.
However, mental health, as easy as it is to get into someone, to see somebody, it is very difficult to get diagnosed, to encourage people to do so. Then people those who need mental health are probably unaware, all right? Much less, as well as probably improperly prepared to take on that responsibility for self-maintenance, if you will, like medication. Checking in with your doctor. It's terribly hard to get any kind of medical assistance that matters, that can make a difference, that will actually affect you here in America, in any state, as far as I've seen. And, yes, mental health.